You know, it's surprising that the more confrontation and intensity of reaction towards Prime Minister we observe, the more original some excuses from Orban sound. Well, I want to quote him directly. The European Union is imposing a model of liberal democracy on the Hungarians against their wishes, using the same methods as Moscow during the USSR times. Such a critical remark towards the European Union was made by the Hungarian Prime Minister, speaking at an event in honor of the anniversary of the anti-Soviet uprising of 1956. So Viktor Orban nevertheless clarified that Brussels is not Moscow. Moscow was a real tragedy. Brussels is just a bad modern parody. And then he added the following: we had to dance to Moscow's tune. Brussels is also blowing the whistle, but we dance the way we want, and if we don't want to, then we don't dance. So, will they dance or not? Do they want it or not? And are Brussels' claims against Hungary justified? Because when they freeze aid, it looks as if, in general, they are blocking aid to Hungary for Ukraine. But in fact, the claims voiced are completely reasonable. This is judicial reform. This is the fight against corruption, and so on and so forth. Because there are some sharp rules developed and adopted by all member states of the European Union, and they must be adhered to. And if not, then either don't dance or play your own tune.
Of course, you touched the spot again, because the allocation of these 13 billion euros subsidies to Hungary has absolutely nothing to do with Ukraine. This money is blocked purely due to violation of rights, violation of relations with the Hungarian media. 99% of the Hungarian media today are completely controlled by Orban. Then universities. Out of 35 universities, 31 manage their funds entirely through Orban foundations. Even now, Hungarian universities are no longer subject to European Development Program. And I think this policy will continue. And I believe that Brussels is doing the right thing. And you are quoting correctly. Orban violates all democratic principles, and I wanted to say that he spoke about the anti-Soviet revolution of 1956 not in Budapest. In Budapest, he simply ran away because there were massive demonstrations against him. He fled to the province, a small village, blocked all the approaches so that no one could get there, and even the press couldn't be present there.
The level of cynicism in this sense is quite high, even I would say off-scale, because when a prime minister who has openly pro-Russian views, openly supports in general Putin's policies, although in order to appease Brussels, he supports sanctions and he allegedly speaks out against the war in rhetoric, but there are words and there are actions. And when he speaks, at this speech we just reminded, he said that 3,000 people died, 20,000 people were wounded, while as a result of communist retaliation, more than 200 people were sent to their deaths, 13,000 people were imprisoned to jail. According to him, 200,000 Hungarians left the country, and all these are the leaders of the Communist Party who killed old people, young men, women, people from Budapest, the countryside, executed the priests, the workers, the farmers, the teachers, and so on and so far. And how can these two completely opposite realities coexist in one his head? Does he himself believe what he says? Do people who hear these words and follow his actions that contradict his words believe it or him?
They contradict, for sure. Look, he has already stated more than once to his close people, journalists that are quite close to him, that yes, I sometimes say things that I myself don't want to believe in. So you don't believe it either. You just watch what I do, because sometimes I myself can say one thing, then another, and then a third one. These are his own words, and indeed he does just that. Unfortunately, no offense to him, but his overall level of development is not that high. He even said once, and he boasted, that I myself came from a very downtrodden village. Of course, there was no normal opportunities for development there. I came to the city, went the university there and started studying. And then I just began, relatively speaking, to think and became aware of myself. Maybe it really affected him. And it is important that in Budapest they do not accept him at all. In Budapest he loses all the polls where elections are held. He doesn't have a single deputy from Budapest. And there is also an interesting trend. The closer you are to Budapest, the more his support drops. The smaller the settlement, the greater Orban's support. And he says that, yes, I'm a man of the province, namely, I represent the province. But Hungary is not Budapest. Hungary is precisely this provincial lumpen serfdom world.
Who then are the people who support him? What are these groups? And do these contradictory words and actions work for these groups? After all, I repeat once again, the words that are not followed by the actions.
To tell the truth, I do not want to offend Orban's electorate, but they're really very narrow-minded people. Monolinguals, provincials, typical provincials, who today have become such lumpen. Even serfs. In Hungary there is such phenomenon as lumpen serfdom. Orban actually returned only for a moment the entire system of administration that was in Hungary during serfdom. The regions in Hungary are no longer even called modern, but mostly called as it was in the Middle Ages. When I read the documents that come to me from Hungary, the region is not called this way anymore. It's written not about the region in Hungarian language, but it's called now Vármide, as it was called in the Middle Ages. And Vármide, this means there was a fortress and it is called a fortress area. Can you imagine that today it is not the Pest region that appears in all official documents of Hungary? It says Pest Fortress Region.